Well, welcome everyone to our council meeting of today. We're back in live session and open. We have a good complement. All of our councils here. We have some staff members here in the audience. No members of public at this time, but once a month when we do this, we'll hopefully have some people in the audience that will come and have a chat, or not a chat, but just to come and watch watch how our council meetings are run. So what I'll do at this time then, we'll say that this is just a recorded version. It's not going to be live streamed in case there is technical difficulties. So at this time, we're just at the trial and error. Hopefully everything all works out and you get to see the recorded version at your leisure. So I'll read the land acknowledgement at this time. We respectively acknowledge that the township of Asphodel-Norwood is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and the Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Islands First Nations. We respectively acknowledge that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask council for a moment of silent reflection so we may reflect upon our duties of today as councillors. Thank you. I'll ask council if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest to speak up now or at time of the issue. Seeing no hands, thank you. I'm looking for the approval of the agenda. The recommendation that the Asphodel-Norwood Council meeting agenda for April 26, 2022 be approved as circulated. Motioned by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. I'm looking for an approval of the minutes, the council meeting minutes of April 12, 2022, and the recommendation is that these minutes be adopted as presented. Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor War. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from those minutes, council? All right, seeing no hands, thank you. We're on to the consent agenda then. Correspondences for information. C1, C2, the reports R1, R2, R3, R4, and the minutes of the Asphodel-Norwood Cemetery Board minutes. So the recommendation is that they would approve the consent agenda as circulated. Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Is there any discussion on the consent? Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I was just wondering about the tracking utility system provided by Noratech Solutions and how that's working with the new bylaw.
It's going exceptionally well. City Reporter is a software we currently use in building and for building permits, to issuing and going paperless for that, as well as we use it as the inspection software for parks, rec, and facilities. And so we've kind of branched off into our third branch, which is for bylaw. It's been up and running fully about 4 to 6 weeks. So it's a brand new platform for City Reporter. So we are anticipating a few bugs, just like we do with any new software, but staff is anticipating getting those worked out relatively quickly, and we're utilizing it in this new bylaw season that always commences once all the snow melts. So council will see some updates on the software in each quarter report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Councillor Ward. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns from council on this consent agenda? Seeing no hands. It's been motioned and duly seconded. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So now we're on to staff and committee. Oh, sorry, no delegations or presentations today. No, none. Staff and committee reports then. R5 would be Kyle Beacock, our water wastewater operations manager. And this is regarding our annual risk assessment and management review for the DWQMS. Kyle, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, through you, Mayor. All right, as Roger said, so this is just the annual risk assessment and management review as a part of our DWQMS requirements. So I won't read out this verbatim as we've been through it a few times, but essentially me, Peter, and Candace got together. We have a look at basically like a holistic look at all the operational things that have happened throughout the year, capital recommendations, staff recommendations, consumer feedback. There's quite a list there. Kind of create some action items out of it, and yeah, so that's the management review portion. And at the same time, we did our annual risk assessment. So we essentially just take a look at our risk assessment tables, see if anything's changed. The big 36-month one was done in May of 2020, and that's kind of where you revisit it all. This one's just to ensure kind of nothing's changed. One thing that actually came down the pipe just after we completed it was sent out by the ministry was cybersecurity. So it looks like they're going to want that added to the risk assessment. So yeah, we're just kind of updating our tables with that, and we'll have a chat about that, kind of what we're doing to mitigate any cybersecurity issues, and we'll go from there. Keep council updated on that. There was no major changes to the risk assessment other than that. Management review, we have a few action items, and yeah, other than that, if there's any questions, I take them now.
Thank you, Kyle. That was a good report. Our 5 questions from council, comments, concerns. Deputy Mayor Burke, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Nothing really on the report, Kyle, but I was wondering, I was just looking back through, what page was it, 51, with the dates of activities and summary results of record of annual review. And it goes back to one of them back to 2009 and carries on. And certainly we were with Aqua at that time. And then you came in 2017, which I would have said it was 2020. I can't believe you've been here that long.
I know.
But so just on all the reporting and changes you've seen, what are some of the most significant changes you've seen in reporting since either you've been here or since you've been in the business? Because it just every month we have another report, it seems like, and there's just been so much going on in the world of water. Have you seen many changes since, you know, the first reports we've got back here?
The biggest changes always seem to come with the DWQMS requirements. Like that's constantly where they're kind of hitting you with this continual improvement and all the best management practice stuff, and constantly seem to be adding to that. Cybersecurity, the risk assessment, they've changed that about 3 times since 17. The requirements of that and how that's got to feed in now to your infrastructure review and your capital recommendations when you're budgeting. As far as reporting goes, like what the ministry is required to see, that has been pretty static, I would say, in the last decade or so, as far as water taking reporting, the annual inspections, that kind of thing, haven't really changed a bunch, but a lot of it is more related to this quality management standard that they're making us hang our hat by.
Okay, it just, you always bring very detailed reports, and I'm sure there's changes as you go along, so I just wanted your assessment on that, so thank you.
Yeah, it definitely is, it's ever evolving, and they kind of, now well, there's been rumblings of it for years, but speaking about having this kind of approach with the wastewater. So they want you to set your wastewater up with this whole quality management system, and they'll be auditing that, and I'm sure it's,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, council, any other questions? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I'll just actually the last page, actually the appendix that talks to the capital recommendations for 2022.
Yes.
And the one is the industrial drive water main upgrade. So we're basically saying it's funding dependent. Is there a concern that do we need to get this repaired, whether we get funding or not, or are we in a situation where we can wait that?
Not really, no. I mean, there's going to have to be some upgrades to the sanitary force main that goes down there at some point in the next couple of years to accommodate for growth. As far as that being on there, that was something we had kind of put some money, earmarked some money for one year, hoping that this funding would come through the economic development. We just didn't get it. So there's not a bunch of critical infrastructure on that piece of road, but it's definitely it's kind of been on our wish list. So we're hoping to get it done, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Candace, you want to follow up on that, please?
Yes, so I think what council is going to see, to follow up to Councillor Welsh's question in regards to that infrastructure, is that that road is going to come into play due to other infrastructure that needs to be replaced. So as Kyle mentioned, there's upgrades that has to happen to the Victoria Street sanitary pumping station. And there's upgrades, which essentially will likely be a twinning of the force main that goes up County Road 45. And then of course, it's got to go up Industrial Drive in order to get to the wastewater plant. So we're not going to open the road to do the force main and not do the rest of the infrastructure. So I think it's going to get done, not because necessarily Industrial Drive needs to be replaced, but it's going to get done because we're going to have the road ripped up for efficiencies. We're not going to not replace all the infrastructure that's under the ground. And the force main and the upgrades to the sanitary pumping station are going to trigger that. So it'll be one big project from the pumping station straight to the water or the wastewater treatment plant.
Mhm.
You're welcome.
Council, any other questions? All right, seeing no hands, then the recommendation for the motion then would be that we receive this report of the Norwood drinking water system and the Trentview Estates distribution system for information. Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor War. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next would be our 6, Kyle Beacock again. This is regarding our 2022 first quarter water and wastewater update report. Kyle, please.
Yeah. So just one of the quarterly updates. This is for information purposes through you, Mayor. So as you can see, we've got the water flows here for the first quarter of 2022, and we compare them to last year's first quarter, kind of an apples for apples comparison. And the flows are up about 5,700 on average per month, these months over the last quarter's months. So they've kind of been steadily coming up. The base flows at night are slightly higher. I suspect we maybe have some small distribution leaks. Usually they're on the private side and we don't hear about them until somebody's got a basement full of water or has no pressure. So those ones are hard to kind of locate. The flows are also, coming up because we are seeing obviously some more occupancies and some other things going on in the town site. So the wastewater treated is the same kind of situation. We have an increase in flows. Up pretty significantly actually this year over last. A lot of that was to do with there were some significant issues found on Victoria Street after construction. We had a clay pipe kind of close to where the contractor tied in that was crushed during construction, and also a service was broken, pulled apart sometime after construction or during. It was hard to tell. We didn't really know until they got all the groundwater pumping kind of completed that we started seeing the infiltration that was caused due to construction. So those 2 items have been since buttoned up. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. And I've taken the copper residuals out of here. We haven't had an issue with the copper and the sludge probably for about 4 years now. So if there's any changes, I'll update council, but for now, it just seems like they've kind of plateaued pretty steady. So yeah, I won't bring that to council anymore unless there's any changes. And yeah, that's all there really is to that report.
Thank you, Kyle. Questions from council? Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Kyle, I was just wondering, is there a maximum volume of wastewater that that could be treated coming through? Like, what would be like a crisis point of water volume that could be treated if something happened?
Essentially, the design rated capacity of the plant is 1,500 cubic meters.
Okay,
So anything over and above that a day is pretty hard to handle at
Okay.
that plant. Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions, council? Comments, concerns? All right, seeing no hands then. So the recommendation for the motion would be that we accept this report regarding our first quarter water and wastewater report for information. Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Kyle. Appreciate that.
No problem.
All right, R7 then would be Candace White, our CAO Clerk Treasurer, and this report would be regarding our corporate resources policy / elections. Candace, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So Section 88 of the Municipal Elections Act was updated with a new requirement that mandates all municipalities to adopt a corporate resources policy that governs elections and the use of corporate resources throughout the campaign period during an election year. So what you have before you is a draft policy to ensure that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood is compliant with the new regulation in the MEA. Basically, there's a lot of definitions and obviously it's, quite lengthy. So I'm not going to read it verbatim, but all in all, basically it spells out what a candidate can do and what happens. Obviously, if you decide, if the counselor sitting here today decide to become a candidate, you are still a counselor. So you're a counselor and a candidate at the same time. So this policy spells out kind of the things that you're able to do and are unable to do in regards to corporate resources. And basically, it's a very simple rule of thumb. If you are at a function, you are to remain a counselor, meaning that you are discussing current business of the township and that you leave your campaigning to take place outside of municipal work. So municipal events or municipal organized events are not the place to be campaigning. That is held true for all candidates that register. So all municipal resources, whether it's a facility, a piece of municipal property, a computer, a photocopier, anything to do with that sort of assets that belong to the municipality are not available for campaigning or candidate use. Again, that we're in the social media world, and so that does include social media accounts, the township website, that sort of thing. I think a lot of times this legislation leans towards larger centers, of course, where counselors are full-time counselors and they have blogs and YouTube channels and their own websites, and the municipal website and municipal social media feeds to those personal member of council blog accounts, etc. We are, rural. We don't tend to have those types of things. So it's in the policy because who knows, maybe one day that situation would present itself. So we have clear defined boundaries as to how that would be handled during a campaign period. It also mentions to the responsibilities of staff and election signs and how the conduct of township staff down to township clothing and where it can be worn, any township branding, name tags, jackets, hats, all of those types of things. So I guess it's just ensuring that obviously I will be delivering this to all township staff, management team and down to ensure as we enter into the campaign period that those boundaries are clear. And to be honest with you, a lot of this stuff was adopted by myself in 2018 as the clerk who was mandated to run the election. I had a staff policy that basically was the exact same thing. And for anything, it's to also protect staff so that if they're asked or they're approached, they obviously have a policy that clearly dictates what they're allowed and not allowed to do so that they're able to address that situation accordingly. There's monitoring and compliance. So obviously there is enforcement as there is in any policy, and the responsibilities of township staff have become aware of a violation of the policy. And essentially it falls back as the clerk who mandates and runs the election to deal with any violations, but I don't suspect that we'll have any. So again, the draft policy in front of you is to ensure that the township is compliant with the new changes to the MEA.
Thank you. So any questions, council, on this report of R7 about the elections policy? Deputy Mayor Burke, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just had a question. So when somebody puts their name forward to come in, they come into the clerk and you would give them and go over a copy of this policy.
Correct.
Yes.
So when it takes about 30 to 40 minutes now to register a candidate, so people will have to make an appointment. And there is a checklist of documents that have to be reviewed with the candidate, and this is on the list.
Very good. I think I remember it from last time, but and really when you go through this document, it really is common sense. However, people, obviously the policy wouldn't be in place if people would remember that. So, but thank you.
You are welcome.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from council on this topic? All right, seeing no hands, then the recommendation for the motion would be that we accept this elections policy for information and that we further adopt the corporate resources policy elections as presented. Motion by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, R8, Candace White, our CAO clerk treasurer, and this report is regarding our stop sign bylaw, Norwood Park Phase 1 and 2, and speed reduction bylaw, Norwood Park, all phases. Candace, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the township grows and the village grows, as you can imagine, transportation issues are starting to present themselves. Originally, it was the approach of township staff that we would wait to fully implement and adopt any bylaws for that area until Assumption. That seems to be taking a fair bit of time. So we have discussed with the OPP, they will enforce the stop sign and speed bylaws within the subdivisions. So we felt it was important to get some things in place for health and safety of the residents that currently reside up there. So the stop signs that were installed have been installed basically since construction. So those stop signs were placed to address construction traffic. As you can imagine, construction traffic obviously travels much differently than regular vehicular traffic of residents. So the manager of Public Works did a thorough review of the stop signs in that area and made a recommendation. Him and I physically went up to the site and drove through it to ensure that the flow of traffic was maintained, as well as being cognizant of the concerns that have been raised. A bylaw was drafted in regards to the placement of the stop signs. It was mailed to all of the residents in Phase 1 and Phase 2, the copy of the draft bylaw, and asking them to please provide comments. The draft speed reduction bylaw was not included and given to them, but it was explained that we were considering a speed reduction bylaw as well in the letter that it was attached to the draft bylaw. So those residents are well aware that these two bylaws are being considered in the month of April. We did receive about half a dozen comments back from the residents up there. A lot of it, to be honest, was just thanking staff for being proactive and thanking us for taking a look at the stop signs and the transportation and the speed issues up there. They put forward some good ideas, which the manager of Public Works and I took a look at. Some of them are implemented in the draft bylaw. Some of them are not. Some of them will be addressed with the speed reduction bylaw and any speed mitigation measures that, because also part of the motion, council is asking for direction for staff to start looking at some speed reduction methods. And there's different things that we can do to address other than just the speed reduction bylaw. But we'll get to that. The biggest changes could probably be spelled out in 3 bullet points. So currently, if you can visualize in your mind, the subdivision up there, if you pull in on Helen Street off of 40 and you pull in, there's basically a stop sign coming the other way on Helen. Again, it was for construction traffic. That stop sign is going to be removed and it's going to be placed on Charles Street. So Charles Street will stop and Helen Street will flow. The second kind of odd stop sign placing was when you come off of Albine onto Helen, there is no stop sign there. So it just kind of, you just keep going and flowing. And there has been some concerns raised from the residents in regards to that traffic should stop there before it continues on to Mill Pond Lane or Helen Street, depending on which way you're going to go. And so there'll be a stop sign placed there. And then the stop signs on Darrell Drain Crescent will be removed. So Mill Pond and Darrell Drain Crescent will flow and the intersecting streets, Noah and Ethan, will stop before they enter out. Those are the main, the biggest changes, I would say, to the bylaw. Obviously, the bylaw allows for the placement of all of the stop signs, but those are the largest changes that I think will impact the subdivisions as a whole. I can take any questions on the stop sign before we get into the speed reduction.
Sure. Council, any questions? We also have with us today our Manager of Public Works, Peter Deshane, is with us in the audience. If there's questions there, you can direct them to him also, or Candace. Any questions, council? Deputy Mayor.
Not really any questions. I think the flow of traffic around the perimeter makes sense. I was up there on Sunday and unfortunately I couldn't load this map on my phone, but it does make sense that they're on those cross streets. And I think that ties in with the next conversation with speed calming, because that's where you're going to need that. But yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm surprised that there were only 6 comments from all of those residents, but I guess that's good. But I thought there would have been more. And this, it doesn't tie in directly with the stop signs, but when is the anticipated assumption of phase 1 and 2? Do you have time or date, or
We had
passed it a few times, or?
We had a strong conversation with the developer about a week ago. There is a deficiency list. So the deficiency list needs to be completed to the satisfaction of township staff and township consulting engineer, at which time the warranty period will be triggered. So the assumption doesn't happen until after the warranty period is up, and we haven't even triggered the warranty period.
Okay.
So and we're not triggering the warranty period at this point in time because there's a couple of assets that we would like to see repaired before we have the warranty period triggered. That said, there's obviously some significant assets that have been in place in phase 1 and phase 2 for some time, that as time goes by, they age, which has the opportunity to create something on a deficiency list that wasn't there just due to time going by. So we have to find that, I guess, lens of reasonableness that we're looking through it to ensure the assets that are a significant dollar value or that would have a significant impact to the assets are addressed before we trigger the warranty period. That said, we are quite aware that there will more than likely be the odd little thing that needs to be addressed based on time of year, et cetera, when the warranty period is triggered. So I would suspect assumption is a couple years out.
Any other questions, council, at this time? All right, Candace, then you can carry on, please.
Deputy Mayor nailed it. The second part, obviously, is a traffic calming solution. As we know, removing those stop signs on Darrell Drain Crescent to ensure that it makes sense for a flow of traffic, that there is opportunity to have a speed concern. That said, we have had the Black Cat deployed to that area for about 10 days. I gave the information in the report. There was no enforcement rating given. Obviously, there is always outliers. There's always 1 or 2 vehicles that are the extreme and are outside the realm of enforcement but the vast majority are traveling at a tolerable speed. But that said, township staff have been approached by residents that do have some pretty significant concerns in regard to speed, regardless of what the Black Cat says. So as their local government, we felt it was important to ensure that we're at least researching some traffic calming measures or options to put in place up there to, take care of the health and safety concerns. So one of them being, obviously, speed bumps have been thrown out there. I have no problem speaking on Peter and I's behalf right now. We are not in favor of speed bumps and what they do to the asset, the road, or the maintenance of the road. That said, there's other things that can be deployed in that area. We seem to think that solar powered speed signs would make the most sense up there. I don't know about council, but I know myself personally driving down the road, if you're daydreaming a little bit and you see one of those signs and you look and you see that you're going faster than you had intended or thought, it's that personal check-in, it gets you back into check. So, and plus it's also, if the residents up there are concerned and they're out walking, they can see the speed right on the sign that vehicle is driving, because we do find a lot of times that it's perception. And when you're walking down the street, a vehicle does look like it's traveling a lot faster than what it actually is being clocked at. So I think it could handle, both of those perspectives. that said, there's other things that we would like to take a look at, but that is the first one that just popped into our conversation out of the gate. But of course, if council so obliges, we will take it forward, come up with some solutions, some costing, and give some options and recommendations to council at a later meeting.
Council, any questions on the speeds? Councilor Walsh, please.
Through you, Mayor, I guess, Kenneth, towards you, what would be costing on those types of solar powered?
The last, staff has researched this for a previous council. This number is pre-COVID number and is a few years old, but I believe it was around $7,000 per unit. Now what the current number is and supply, I have no idea. We'd have to take a look at researching all of those options and costing. Maybe there's other suppliers out there now. It was probably around 2016, 2017 that we had been directed to research it, but it wasn't approved by council ultimately at the end of the day. So it's probably time to revisit it.
Okay. And it would be a unit that's not permanent, that we could have the ability to move around where we felt it needed to be, or?
I think you can move them around. I think they would stay permanent for a fair length of time, though, I would suspect. There's other places in the village. The Black Cat has been a great tool. There has been a couple of areas in the township that have been identified that we didn't suspect. The ones that we thought were the concerns weren't the concerns. But again, a lot of that is driven by residents that live in that area, and some are more willing to reach out to township staff or council and voice their concerns than maybe others. So it's drawing our attention to some areas versus other areas of the township. So I do think it potentially will have to be a budgetary item in order to get them in the places that we need them to start. And then of course, there's always the ability, just like the Black Cat, we can move them around. I know there's hydro pole or street lights, we can put them on. But again, we'll have to take a look at the mobility of them and the flexibility of them when we look at the option. You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Burke, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, just a comment. Yeah, I find those solar speed signs work extremely well personally. And I think that's a good option, but I'm sure staff will bring back a fulsome report on other options beside those.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, through you, Mayor. At the Good Roads yard, stopped at that one booth that had the signs up there and talked to one guy there for a few minutes. The good news is, Kent, they've dropped about $1,200 to $1,500 over COVID. So, yeah, they really came quite a long ways too, with the different brackets and solar, with the solar and the battery. And like the guy said, really you just have to buy the extra brackets if you want to move it around. And if it's going to go back to that area again, just
Buy
take
the
the sign and
brackets.
move it, just buy some extra brackets. And he said they really came a long ways in the last couple of years. So,
Did you happen to get a business card from that person?
yes, I do, but I didn't bring it with me.
No, that's okay.
I won't
We
get
know
it.
where you are. We can find you. We can get the card. Since you were speaking to him, did it happen to say if there was any reporting mechanism with it at all?
Yes, I think there was on this one too.
Yeah, because that's something that I would be interested in. If you're going to have that, there would be a reporting feature. And I know back in 2016, 2017, they hadn't come that far with the technology. So, and COVID, that's the first thing I've heard, that COVID made cheaper. So that's a good news story for us. Thank you, Councillor.
Any other comments on the speed reduction stuff here? Councillor Walsh, please.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, again, just one other clarifying question regarding this. So the potential bylaw would be a 30 km/h speed limit up in that area. What is our speed limit on other streets in the village right now? Would that be consistent?
No, it's definitely lower. I think it's 40, and then we have some 50. Yeah. But I think, I mean, it's not a throughway up there. We don't have a lot of streets like that.
No.
And other streets have schools on them that are like that, such as Flora, and they already are reduced. So we don't really have a lot of streets where they're just pedestrian based without a school feature or something that would calm the traffic already. That isn't a throughway. So no, I would not say it's consistent. It's definitely
understand.
slower. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Good comments. I've noticed there markings on the road too with the speed sometimes helps. I mean, they would do wear out. There's one down on Spring Street before the school there. I think that does work for people. They see that visual also. So there's another calming measure too that possibly could be taken in the future. But anyway, any other comments on this right at this time? No. So this is a large recommendation for the motion. I'm just going to read it so I don't mess anything up here. So the Council of Asphodel-Norwood accepts this report regarding the stop sign bylaw for Norwood Park Phase 1 and 2 for information. And further, that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood accept this report regarding a speed reduction bylaw for all phases of Norwood Park for information. And further, that the Council of Asphodel-Norwood authorize staff to present draft bylaw 2022-16 and draft bylaw 2022-17 during the bylaw portion of the meeting of the council's consideration. And further, that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood authorizes staff to research speed calming solutions for all Norwood Park phases and report recommendations to council at a subsequent meeting. Who'd like to make that as a motion? Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor War. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Candace, R9, then this report is regarding our management action list, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you can see, the reports on the action list that have been addressed at April 26th, coming up on May 10th. We are going to be bringing a report forward, hopefully in regards to the Westwood Well. Once we have a bit more information in regards to the engineering for that, then we'll bring something forward for information at one of the meetings in May. Outside of that, the skateboard park expansion. So that's been on here. We had to extend the RFP for design build to the 28th of April. There had, obviously, with every sector, there is concern in regards to timing and getting a company that's able to come in and build it. But we have had interest, but we did have a request for an extension. Otherwise, that would have came to this meeting of council. But due to the extension to April 28th, it will come on May 10th. Again, subdivision agreements for Birch, we are waiting for detailed design for their engineer because subdivision agreements in the appendix, they refer back to the approved detailed design drawings, and we haven't received those yet. And our engineers haven't even received them, let alone reviewed them and went back and forth for any changes. So I suspect that's going to be bumped down a little bit. Outside of that, I don't really have any questions.
Council, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, then the recommendation then at this time would be that we accept this report as brought forward. Motioned by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Correspondence for action. C3, Georgian Bay Associations. This is a report regarding bylaws to regulate shipping container floating homes and floating cottages. I'll just make a comment before anyone has a chance, I guess, is that I do think this is important to take into consideration, even though all we have in our area basically is the Trent River system. But I do think that having support for some of the cottages and lakes that surround us for other municipalities, I think it's important that we help safeguard them to a certain extent too. So is there any comments from council at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, we had something similar. I don't think it was this exact one come to county as well. And certainly just the thought of having shipping containers just moored out on the water is somewhat frightening. My first thought was, what do you do with the waste? Let alone everything else that's on top of that. So I know, I don't agree with it. I think does need to be regulated, and so I would make a motion to support this.
Do I have a seconder before we carry on? Councillor Ward. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Any other comments? All right, seeing no hands, we have a motion, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Councillor liaison reports. Is there anyone has anything to bring forward at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And I will forward the report to you, Melanie, for the minutes. There was a waste performance report to County Council last Wednesday, and I apologize, I was having technical difficulties, so I did not get it to Melanie in time. Overall, the recycling from a county perspective was up and the garbage was down. For 2020 and 2021, it was the garbage for Asphodel-Norwood was up a bit, but the recycling was also up. So that's good news at both curbside and the depot. And I think a lot of that had to do with people were home and they had time to clean up, and there was extra waste going out the door. And I thought it was interesting for Peterborough County, we are in the top 20% of all Ontario municipalities for waste diversion. So I thought that was good to know. We're on the right half. So there will be annual reporting for both the performance and customer response. But if there are any deviations, either good or bad, that will be going to the waste management team, and when we'll also go to the lower tiers. And it's a very good report. And like I say, we'll send that to Melanie so everyone can take a look at it. And we will be having a special meeting on Monday to go through the DC charges bylaw and passing that on Monday. So that is all I have for now.
Thank you. Just further to that on the waste management side of things, just so council's aware, I am on the waste management committee, but we are not recognized through the city. We are a standalone committee that we do chat about different things and bring it forward. And then we report actually, and I forget the words, sorry, but it's the warden's meeting that they have, not the warden's meeting, but it's, oh, they changed it in
They
letters
changed,
now. But
yeah.
anyway, there's 5 of them and they meet with some of the top officials from the city, and then they discuss certain issues that are happening between the city and the county. And but I just saying waste management is not recognized through that, even though we have a joint operation of Bensford with them. Candace, please.
So the joint services committee between the city and the county, is that the committee you're speaking of?
Yeah, but they've changed
They've
the
changed
words.
the name.
They've changed the name.
Again, yeah,
They changed the name but didn't change the mandate.
yes.
And so didn't the county make a request for waste to be included on the, I'm going to continue to call it the joint services committee because that's what it was called for years, but.
Yeah.
So, and that was declined.
Yes.
So does the waste committee ever meet with members of the joint services committee, or is it just left to county staff and city staff? Because I know that there's going to be an RFP going out for a consultant to look at organics and curbside garbage at the county. So none of that is going to be discussed at joint services with the city then in Bensford Road.
That has been delayed. And I believe it's just because of the timing of how that works.
But are there not a couple of members of joint services that are on the waste? There's one. Is there not, at least?
No, not anymore.
Oh, there isn't? Oh,
No.
okay. I thought there was.
No, Jim Martin used to be on waste, but he's not anymore. That you'd have to reach out to Sheridan on that one. On how that worked. It was,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know how all that fell into place, but yeah, it's just a mess between the city and the county at this time. There's just no other way to say it, right? So,
Well, I would think that the waste, it's going to impact the lower tiers more so than just recycling,
Mhm.
which recycling doesn't have as big an impact on the city-county relationship. So I understand maybe why waste hasn't been up there on that historically, but essentially Bensford Road is in the county. The
there's-
site is in the county.
There's-
Organics and curbside garbage is gonna, if that decision is made, regardless of the RFP being delayed, which again, I don't agree with, but that's here nor there. Then it's going to become a big impact to the lower tiers. And the city could have, their decisions could have an impact on the county, which again, if our contracts are all uniform and with the county, I think we need a voice on waste on that joint services committee.
Yes,
So should we as a council or as a municipality be advocating for that?
we've tried, but what will be in our best benefit, not this year, but next year now, so next term of council, is that there be a new MOU with the city. That's how the Bensford is run and how, because there was a contract between them. And then if they're gonna bring organics in from all over the country too, they want to bring all organics there. So we're talking about possibly having a levy of a certain size or certain amount on each truck that comes through, because they're impacting all of our townships coming through. If they're coming from Clarington, Oshawa, Marmor, Madoc, anywhere, so they're gonna be crossing our township roads as well as county roads in order to get there, to get their organics out. And we brought this up and saying like, why do the taxpayers of the county have to flip the bill to repair the roads when all these heavy trucks are destroying it, basically? So there is a lot of work behind the scenes, but the MOU that we're going to be talking about down the road next year, if we're elected to a certain extent, then there's going to be some stronger language and some other stuff brought out forward in order to help protect the county and the township's interests.
So does the MOU with the city that's going to come due in 2023, is that the MOU that addresses all joint services or just waste?
Just the waste one.
Are they not going to be looking at all? Because
No, they might.
I have a feeling all of the shared services will be looked at next term of council. I'm not sure that will be
Yeah.
a question that we can reach out to with Sheridan as far as the next term. But there's issues in all of the shared services groups. I'm sure you're aware of it. And yeah, it's,
So 2023, at least it's on our
Yeah.
radar.
yeah, exactly.
So there's some pretty heavy conversations that
And
need to be had.
what's unfortunate is they didn't want a joint waste committee with the service, with the city and the county. So the county continued with their own, they're still they still speak of waste at joint services. But unfortunately, waste is such an important
Well-
issue that it needs to
It
have
needs to
its
be.
own group talking together
Mhm.
in, like, between the city and the county, and the city turned it down, I think twice.
Well, the other issue is, so what meeting did you call that?
Joint services.
The joint services. At joint services, there's no minutes that are forwarded onto council. They come to county council, but staff at joint services that take the notes and all that, they don't supply that to the rest of their council at the city. So then they're left in the blind, basically. So there's only a certain couple that know what's actually going on in the city, and the rest are left in the dark unless they hear it through the news or something like that. So that's the other part of doing an MOU, is that we may host it now in the county. And if we host any meetings, and we're probably going to bring this up to a council meeting at county, that all our meetings are recorded and live streamed to a certain extent if they're able to, at least they're recorded that the public can actually have a look at them. So we're really changing a few things up, but it has a lot to do with waste, since we were just talking about that. So
Well, it sounds like a terms of reference needs to change,
it does.
because sometimes the memorandum of understanding, the MOUs don't always pick up how a meeting is run, but definitely there should be minutes taken that are distributed
That's right.
from any council appointed committee or board. That's pretty standard
Well,
practice.
we're coming at it with open and transparency, where it's not so open and transparent, say, at the city level, as far as that's concerned. That's saying it just as broad strokes as you can get it, and it's the truth. So,
Well, I think that as a lower tier municipality, that will be part of the conversations as to whether we go to a collaborative approach to curbside garbage and organics.
Mhm.
I would say that we need to keep a thumb on the pulse of that conversation, because
that's right.
that will have a direct impact on all of us.
That's why we're bringing it up now to a certain, like, this, it's important. It might not, it's not gonna fall in our term of council, but next term, CAO, it'll hit hard, fast.
I'll bring it up at the next CAO meeting.
I would, yeah. Okay,
And Rob, I just have a question, sorry. How long has the county waste management committee been together? It hasn't been that long, has it?
well,
Like-
the problem was that the city had always done the agenda. The city runs the dump, the
Mhm,
events.
yeah.
So the city maintains that, like we look after ambulance in the county, right? So we also look after Fairhaven too in the county. So there's certain things that we split it up, right? So the city actually has full control over the Bensford Road dump. So anytime an agenda ever came to us, all we could do was ask questions, but the questions really never went anywhere because it only went to staff.
Okay.
There was some counselors there as representatives, but like I said, nothing really went back to the city where we would report back to the county. Okay, so when that happened, then they just, like I said at that time, this is a go nowhere committee. Why are we wasting our time here when we have no teeth in the matter? And then, so that's when I brought that up at the very beginning, I think, and I believe the CAO at the time was Troy Speck,
Okay.
right? And I brought that up and I said, why doesn't this committee actually take part of joint services then? And that's what it was called at the time, and take waste into joint services, because I assumed at that time that joint services had more teeth than just a couple councilors sitting on a subcommittee. And we had no say in anything hardly, right? They would turn around and say, you owe $1 million, well, then you owed $1 million. But there was no real background in order to help you out along the way. So then I said, let's do joint services. It became a motion that got carried through county. We dissolved that, my fault. I'll take blame for that at that time, because I brought it forward thinking joint services would do a better job than what our committee was doing. Then as things went on with waste management at the county, then we got talking more and more, and stuff was coming through at county when you were there. And then we said, hey, maybe we need a committee to get together on this again. So that way we can get more of a pulse on the situation and then bring more highlighted stuff back to all of council at county. So we are straight as to where we need to go. So that's how that worked. Any other questions, comments, concerns? None? Okay, so I think we had Candace, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, sir.
All right, I may need help on that one. I forget where we're at.
We're on the
this one.
council liaison report, so no motions necessary.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So the CAO clerk's treasurers list is next on the agenda. Please.
Okay, just quickly, I'd like to remind council of the event that's happening on this Sunday, May 1st, in regards to a couple of big funding announcements that are going to be made that day. The Legion and the Lions Club have been so gracious as to be providing the barbecue for that day. So that's very exciting, as well as there's going to be some on ice fun. So hopefully some families can come and participate or watch. We are also launching the 2023 Asphodel-Norwood bid for Hockeyville. After we get this launch underway and the AGM for minor hockey has taken place and the new executive is known, the committee will be struck for Hockeyville. So I suspect that'll be coming in May, and you're going to see Hockeyville themed events held throughout the rest of 2022 and into 2023, ramping up for that bid. I will also have large boards, storyboards are called, on easels in the lobby of the community center that's going to have the draft layout of the expansion to the community center. So those members of the public that haven't been able to watch that meeting on YouTube will be able to walk by and take a look at it. So definitely, if you're able to attend, as I said, 11 o'clock is when Minister Puccini will be here. So try to stop by. I mentioned during the action list about the Westwood well. I just thought I would allow council this opportunity to ask any questions if they had any, because obviously there's no staff report, because unfortunately there's not much to tell at this point in time. We want the engineers to get back to us so we have the big old why answered. That's without the why, I don't really have a whole lot to say. And hopefully we'll be able to have that report back to you in the month of May. A couple of big construction projects, obviously, in the township. So the expansion to the fitness club expansion to the community center, as well as the skateboard park expansion, running into supply issues. Steel joists, web steel joists for this expansion. There's been a delay. The big suppliers for those web steel joists have been scooped up by the huge Amazon facilities that are coming in the province of Ontario, which has really then, of course, taken production to the smaller players throughout the province and kind of jam them up and put a backlog into production there as well. That said, we have been able to source them. We are in the production line, but it will be a delay. So we are not going to see the grand opening of the fitness club for the community center in 2022. It's just not going to happen. I'm thinking we're looking at probably spring. I have been in touch with the province, with our analysts to ensure that the extension can be granted. It's looking that way. I don't know if you've been watching the federal budget, but they've put extensions on all of their construction projects for the ICIP, which was music to my ears, because of course we get the provincial green light. It'd be nice to have the federal green light at the same time. So I don't think we're going to run into any issues in getting, slight extensions, because it's not like we're saying, oh, we need 2 more years. We're talking, we need 4 to 6 more months. Same as ringing true for the skateboard park expansion. It's not a big build, meaning it doesn't take a lot of time to build. Once they get on site, you're looking at about a 6 to 8 week construction period. So in the world of construction, that's not a long time. But it's getting them here. So that's proving to be a bit of a challenge. And it looks like the communication we've had with the bidders that are going to be putting in to the RFP that's out right now, it looks like they want a fall build. So we'll see when the bids come in. But all in all, I just thought it was important to communicate. There's been a lot of meetings, a lot of back and forth over the last 4 weeks in regards, and it's literally this stimulus funding that the federal and provincial governments have put in place to assist with pulling us all out of the pandemic is fabulous. It's great. Obviously, we are all going to benefit from that, but what it's done is it's flooded the market. And so the market is flooded. And then, of course, you take that flooded market with the stimulus funding, you couple that with supply issues because manufacturing companies haven't rallied from COVID, and then the workforce has taken a huge hit. So that is a really good recipe for that all just sums up to delay. That's what that means. So it's coming. Lots of conversations are happening behind the scenes, but I will keep council abreast of what's happening and how things are moving forward. Again, Trails Day, there is going to be a big event up there. I did see. So the Trails Committee is going to be having a barbecue and some other events, and we will be unveiling the project, the partnership with the Lions Club in regard to the new signage and whatnot on Trails Day. So that's pretty exciting. And I don't know if you've seen the Facebook post, but township staff was out and about on Earth Day, and we collected over 100 bags of garbage and various items when we were out and about. So it was nice to have a little bit of a team building exercise. We used to do that annually pre-COVID. So it was nice for them to be able to be out and about and take part in that. And that's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions on the list? Councillor Walsh.
Just a comment regarding Hockenville. So my understanding is they're down to their final 4 for picking this year's. Actually, Drew Gummer is amongst the 4 on their Facebook page. I think it's Drew Meyer Sports. They actually, their video is there. Just as
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Just to kind of see how their approach was. This is a learning for us. So just wanted to share that with everybody.
Yeah, it's fabulous. The video is a video submission, I think, is really the only way to go. But our approach will be, because it's a voting process. So the final 4, it goes out to the public for vote. So our approach is going to be to ensure over the course of the next 10 months that not a single resident in this township and neighboring municipality does not know that we're putting in a bid for Hockeyville in 2023, and we're asking them for their vote. So every single event, everything, because I personally was unaware that Gerald Dummer was putting in a bid till like the very nth hour, and I was unaware of that. And I think that I would just like to ensure that all of our neighbors and every resident in this township is well aware that we're wearing our Hockeyville hats for the course of the next 10 months. And it'll be a video submission for sure, and video footage of all of our events. And the minister being here, giving us his blessing for the bid, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be a really, really exciting year, and hopefully Gerald Dummer is successful, and don't forget to vote for them, and so they can vote for us next year.
And I would say, just to feed on that, is that Hockeyville bid was basically driven by the minor sports organization, not the whole township. And I think that's a learning for us that our approach is going to be different.
It is going to be different. There's going to be
Mhm.
a committee
It's a
struck. Yeah.
Greater opportunity to get our township and everybody to sit in the nearby townships engaged.
I think the committee approach, plus it's a lot. It's a lot for one volunteer organization to take on. So our approach is going to be to strike a committee, and obviously minor sports will be represented on that committee along with township staff and other organizations and other groups, to ensure that we share the load, especially with our approach. We're taking it over a 10-month duration. It's a long time, and it's a lot of work for the committee, but obviously we're going to have a work plan, and that work plan will then be passed on to, so every township committee and board has annual events. So it's the holiday market, it's Trails Day, it's the Culture and Heritage Committee, their gatherings. We are the library. We're going to have a Hockeyville Library Day that at the libraries, it's going to be a big event all about Hockeyville. So we're just going to, there'll be a work plan, and we're going to piggyback on all of those events that are already there. And we've got some Trails Committee member, Culture and Heritage member. We do have, out of the committee, there will be some requests coming forward to see if there's some partnerships that can be made, such as, what did hockey look like historically in this area? Is there something that we can do during one of our Hockeyville events to pull that in? Recreation, Trails Day we've got banners coming, t-shirts coming. So if you plan on attending on May 1st, please ensure that you see township staff Friday or Thursday or Friday, or let us know, because then we'll give you your Hockeyville t-shirt. So we can be loud and proud for all of the township staff and council that are participating. We'll be all wearing our new Hockeyville shirts that then you can keep it. And then obviously we would appreciate it if you wore it to all of the Hockeyville events that the township holds throughout the year. And any other time you'd like to advertise it. So.
Good. Any other comments, concerns, questions? Deputy Mayor Burke, please.
This is right at the start of your conversation. But the Westwood well, obviously, all of the parties are coming together, the township and the health unit.
Yes.
When it comes to this situation, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not our problem.
Very good.
We're just a voice at the table.
Just putting that out there on the record. So thank you very much.
Yes, the health unit they're aware of their responsibilities, and they've come to the table and have owned those responsibilities. That said, they are as equally as baffled as everybody else. So we need the professionals, such as the well drillers coming back in this week, and the consulting engineer, to take a look at it, and they'll be reporting to Peterborough Public Health as they're reporting to us. Obviously, there's a porta potty that's been installed there. There is water. They are able to access a certain amount of water out of that well to be used sparingly, but it is there. But obviously there's costs associated with ensuring that facility can run right now and move forward, and that will not be borne by the ratepayers of Asphodel-Norwood. I think that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just had a comment when you mentioned about the material costing for certain jobs and the delays and one thing after another. When I had my meeting with the mayor South and Minister Piccini, under our general business for that meeting, I brought up the fact of the overages of certain costs when you have an RFP put out there, And then the RFP is not taken up because of the costing of materials is so much more money. And if you still want that project to go through, how it costs the township thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So Minister Piccini said he would write that down and bring something back. Maybe not in this term. If he gets elected next term, he'll definitely look into it. But extra funding to come through to help with the extra overages that have occurred with pricing of different projects out there. So the government is well aware that this is happening out there, whether it could be a form of gouging to a certain extent from different companies, or it's just the fact that they can't get their equipment and it costs more. So, but it's been brought to their attention and he wrote it down and he's going to look into it for us. So.
Great. It's a
Okay.
reality.
Next on the agenda then, council, is general business. Does anyone have anything under general business at this time? All right, thank you. Seeing no hands, then we're going to stop the recording here shortly. I need a motion then to go into closed session so that we may talk about 2 items regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual. So I need a motion then, please, to suspend council to go into closed. Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? Okay, well, welcome back. The time now is 3:08. We've come out of closed session back into open as a motion without a report. Next on the agenda then would be a notice of motion. So I've asked for this notice of motion to come forward and I'll read it, that the council of the township of Asphodel-Norwood directs staff to liaison with the city of Peterborough staff and neighboring lower tier municipalities to begin discussions for a rural transportation pilot project. The reason for this motion, do I need a seconder to?
No, you can't move a motion.
No, okay,
So if you want to move it, you have to relinquish chair
All right.
to someone that you choose and relinquish it and move it. Move the motion.
I don't have to relinquish if somebody wants to take the motion.
I
Deputy
will
Mayor
make the
Burt,
motion.
seconded by Councillor Archer. And discussion on the motion then. I'll begin discussion if you'd like, chatting with a couple of the city councillors from the city of Peterborough. They've brought forward this, they owe us a bus, they told us. So we're looking at transportation possibly to come down through from the city into Asphodel-Norwood as from the city. But the way that they work their office basically is that council of the city needs to make sure that the city staff have a motion going their way, that their staff can reach out to any other council or staff members also. And they wanted us to have this notice of motion, even though we don't have that. If our staff want to look into something that's going to help out our situation here in our township, they go ahead and do it and then bring it to council to a certain extent. But in this case here, the city staff want our blessing, that staff can actually reach out to them to have a chat with them about bringing city busing to Asphodel-Norwood. And I'd like to see it go all the way to Havelock, possibly through Keene and then back up through Bureau Government. That's something that staff would work out on. So any other ones want to speak to the motion?
No, just I think it's a great idea, especially for seniors. If they don't have vehicles, they'd be able to drive, and as well as students, post-secondary students. I think it makes sense. Housing is very difficult to find in the city, so this might be an option for them as well. So I think it's worth it to open the door. It's not going to happen overnight, we know that, but I think it's worth it to open up the door and start the discussion and see what the costs are and see what the process is moving forward.
Right, Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thank you through you. I don't know if anyone at this table remembers, but when I was a teenager, there was a bus route that came through on Saturdays in particular. And it would stop in Norwood, Hastings, Westwood, Keene, and it would take you to Peterborough for the day. You know, you catch a matinee, go to the mall or whatever. This is for, at that age. And then you'd be home by 5 or 6 at night. And I was just wondering if there's any input on the scheduling of the bus. Would it be weekdays or would it be weekends as well? Or is that something that the staff would work out?
That's
Details.
something that staff would work out
Yeah.
and go through. Basically, it's just our idea here to let them do all the discussions and all the planning as to where they might stop one thing after another. This is not by no means in this term of council that this
Yeah.
has to happen.
No.
All this does is just opens up the door to allow our staff to reach out to other staff in the township in order to go forward with the city staff. going
The
there.
city staff won't talk to us unless there's a motion of council.
That's right.
So it's just to kickstart the conversation.
Yeah.
I think the one to Selwyn has been quite successful over the last couple of years. I'm sure it's changed a little bit with COVID with protocols, but they, it seems to be working, and I think that it needs to be expanded.
I think so. And it would be something a bit different, I think.
Mhm.
But then with the GO bus, just coming to Northumberland County, obviously the province is realizing rural transportation is an issue. So the Selwyn bus, there was the pilot project was funded through the province, or a good portion of it was. Obviously, there's going to be ongoing costs, and that's where the conversation is going to come in. It's one thing to get funding to get started, the capital upfront costs. It's the ongoing operational costs, and where is that going to fall? And maybe it goes around to Havelock and Keene and Norwood, and it's picking up 3 municipalities. So is it shared? Is it shared equally? So I mean, even the scheduling, the cost sharing, the capital outlay, there's a lot of conversation, and I haven't even had a conversation yet, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's also advertising on the side of the bus that can help pay for one thing, and each township does get a certain amount of gas tax brought back to them too. And there's other options, but also talking with our minister, Pacini, he's let me know before they have to start their reelection here shortly, he was going to send us a letter of intent, not necessarily support, because then that's a monetary, but a letter of intent to say it's a good idea to carry forward. That's what we're waiting for from Minister Pacini's office at this time too. Anything else? Any other comments on the notice of motion? All right, it's motion's been made, duly seconded. All in favor then, please. And that has been carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, I will ask the clerk at this time then to begin our bylaws, please.
Being a bylaw to provide for the installation of stop signs in the township of Asphodel-Norwood, read a first, second, and third time, and numbered 2022-16.
Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? That's carried.
Being a bylaw to regulate the speed of motor vehicles within the corporation of the township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time, and numbered bylaw 2022-17.
Councillor War makes the motion. Deputy Mayor Burt has seconded. All in favor? That's carried.
This next bylaw is in regards to the procedural bylaw that we posted for public comment on our meeting of April 12th. It went out through the township's regular channels with no comments received. So no changes were to the bylaw. Based on that, it's just put forward in the same format as it was on April 12th for council's consideration. Therefore, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and committees of the corporation of the township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time, and numbered bylaw 2022-18.
Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. All in favor? Confirming bylaw.
Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of the council of the township of Asphodel-Norwood had held April 26, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, and numbered bylaw 2022-19.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Council, you see your future meeting schedule ahead of you, and next on the agenda is our adjournment, and looking then for a motion to adjourn our meeting of April 26th to be adjourned at 3:16, and that our next meeting for regular meeting on May the 10th, 2022, or at the call of the chair, which will be a Zoom meeting, I take it, I believe. So I need a motion for that, then, please. Deputy Mayor Burt, Councillor Archer seconded. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, council. And for those of you at home, I hope you enjoyed our meeting. Thank you.